This is TENS, winning one of the most unlikely rounds in Valorant history. In this video, we'll be breaking down the one rule that all pro players use to win impossible rounds and to secure unlosable rounds. By the end, you'll know exactly how to double your round win rate by carrying more matches. The rule that we'll be discussing in this video is the higher-lower rule. For those who aren't familiar with this rule or would like a refresher on the topic, the concept in its most basic form is that during a round, whenever you have a numbers advantage, you play passively with your teammates and look for opportunities to create trades or crossfires. And when you're at a number disadvantage, you play aggressively to proactively look for isolated duels so you can find frags that equalize the number advantage that the enemy has. And for those who are asking, whenever the numbers are even for both sides, aggressive or passive play is fair game, depending on the game's current state. Those who are frequent viewers of the SkillCapped channel might have already heard this rule, but in this video we'll be expanding the rule to make it even more effective. Instead of the higher-lower rule just being if you have a number advantage or disadvantage, let's change it to if you have a resource advantage or disadvantage. This may seem like a very minor change, but later on in the video we'll explain how this small change to this rule is gonna win us more rounds than we should. But before we get into the specific details of this new and improved rule, let's first take a moment to get a better understanding of the traditional sense of the higher-lower rule. Now keep in mind, rules like this are crafted to help simplify the learning process for all of you. Here at SkillCapped, we believe it's much easier for players to apply complex topics if they're able to simplify this difficult game into less complex rules. So while the higher-lower rule may not always apply, it should apply in most cases, making it super easy for you to make decisions on the fly. And this is just one of many things we teach in our courses over at SkillCapped. In fact, in our most recent course on the spider method, we break down exactly how a player can immediately improve their movement in Valorant with a foolproof method created by our experts. By applying the spider method, which you'll master in this 40-minute course on our website, you'll immediately transform your aim and start climbing in no time. And if this sounds too good to be true, remember, we have a rank improvement guarantee, meaning if we can't help you improve, you won't pay. We do this because we genuinely believe in what we teach, and if it doesn't help you improve, then you shouldn't pay. So, if you're really looking to climb and rank this act, be sure to check out SkillCapped using the link below, and we'll see you there. Okay, so now let's take a look at how the higher-lower rule could have potentially saved a winning round from spiraling out of control. This is a ranked match of myself playing Brimstone on Ascent. After the early round exchanges, we found ourselves in a 3v2. An important detail here is both of the enemies were recently seen towards mid, which means that the only paths they can take in a somewhat quick manner are either 1 to go cat or 2 to go back to tiles and through B main. There is actually a third option, going through pizza, but we have Killjoy's alarm bot placed there, so we can leave that kind of as an afterthought. If we were to use the higher-lower rule here, we'd probably deduce that since we have a numbers advantage in the round, our primary goal is to play passively. That way we can gain information on where the enemies are going without putting ourselves in a position where we're forced to take a duel. However, in a moment of absent-mindedness, I don't follow the higher-lower rule here, and I chose to play an off-angle that has no potential escape route or cover. My thought process here was maybe this off-angle could surprise him, giving me potentially 2 kills, or at worst, a 1-for-1 trade where my teammates are set up for a 2v1. But this was quite the opposite of what actually had happened in this round. As I'm waiting, tucked next to the flower pot, the enemy Killjoy shift walk peeks around the corner to clear this specific angle and kills me. The enemies now have a 2v2 and a free site to prepare their ideal post plant. My failure to follow the higher-lower rule gave the enemies a window to turn the round back in their favor. An alternative option I could have chosen to follow the rule could have been to jiggle peek to find information on where their location was, or I could have held a pixel angle, which gives me just enough vision to see if anyone's walking into tree without exposing myself too much. Whenever I gain info on where they're going, then I can back up and group with my teammates. Then we can use our number advantage to the fullest. Thankfully, my teammates were able to clutch the round, but the concept of hiring our win rate comes from not allowing the round to fall into these dire circumstances on our own, rather than having to rely on our teammates more often than we need to. But enough watching an average Joe play ranked. Let's take a moment to watch one of the most insane Valorant clutches of all time, and we'll see the higher-lower rule in action.
On to the showstopper. This would be the biggest play into the round here. Oh, spotted Kinsey does a bit of damage. But now with 20 seconds left, it has to be a split into the B site. 3 players up there. First one sticking out. Stephanie dropping one. Showstopper then coming out. It might be it right here. Emily has to come up huge. Looking for the TP.
What's going to A? He's going to have time.
Goes for the plant. It's safe. 2 smokes available. One already
Judge
dropping
Bucky
down the sight.
Vandal.
Close range, there's the first headshot. No more bullets left, has to reload. And thankfully there's no showstopper, no paint shells. Elena!
Oh my God!
It's not to a 1 versus 1 as Power Pixel picks up the Vandal. Lean back on the fight.
Silly!
This is genuinely one of the craziest clutches of all time. Game 3, and you have to win to even give your team a chance to win the game by bringing it into overtime. This is going to sound obvious, but whenever you're clutching against more than one opponent, you're perpetually at a numbers disadvantage. Practically the entire time, and as you all know, with the higher-lower rule, a numbers disadvantage means we look to be aggressive to find frags that can lessen this disadvantage. If we replay every single frag that Emily made during this clutch, Emily was the only one peeking into the enemies looking for duels. Being proactive during these clutches gives the opponents less time to plan on how they want to press their advantage, usually in the form of grouping up with each other. If Emily would have just stayed inside the bomb site after planting, the enemies would have had plenty of time to group up, communicate a plan, and then use their utility to clear every angle methodically. Be more like Emily during your clutches. Something we've been hinting at throughout the entire video is our newly revamped higher-lower rule. So let's hop right into it. As we mentioned earlier, our new higher-lower rule goes as follows. If you have a resource advantage, play more passive or standard. If you have a resource disadvantage, play more aggressively or more unconventional. The main reason we're changing the term numbers advantage to resource advantage is we want to include economy into the equation. More specifically, your weaponry, armor, and abilities that you have in a round. To make it a bit easier to understand, let's take a look at a round from one of my ranked games on Pearl. To give a little context, in the previous round we just lost, and the enemy team was able to save many Phantoms and Vandals, allowing them to have a full buy for this upcoming round. And since we just lost, we had a pretty mixed buy of lesser rifles or light armor purchases. From the scoreboard and context clues from the previous round, I realized we're at a resource disadvantage, since the enemies have a complete full buy versus our force buy where we're lacking some rifles, armor, and utility. With this in mind, I communicate a plan to my teammates that we should do some coordinated aggression towards B long. Since I'm playing Astra, I'm able to give my teammates a smoke and a gravity well to help isolate duels onto whoever decides to push through the smoke. After the round starts, my 3 teammates push up B long in conjunction with my Astra utility and completely obliterate the enemy as they attempt to run through my smoke. The round is effectively over before it even started because we brought the fight to them. Even though this was a play we could have made during our full buy rounds, the key idea here is that if we gave the enemies a bunch of space and time to set up into whatever positions they wanted, they would on average beat us because of the resource advantage they have. If we give them fights on their terms, more often than not they'll win the round because of the resource discrepancy we noticed during the buy phase. You're starting to see the repeating theme here, right? Being proactive can help you win rounds you're not supposed to win. On the other hand, the higher-lower rule can also help you secure rounds you aren't supposed to lose as well. How about we take a look at a different ranked match to see how the enemy team failed to follow the higher-lower rule. Our team had just lost the previous round in a flawless fashion, so with this in mind, we can see that we're forced to go for a half buy here against the enemy's full buy. So if we were the enemies here, the higher-lower rule states that we should focus on playing near our teammates so we can ensure trades. But this is ranked, so everyone makes mistakes. As the round starts, 3 of my teammates go for aggressive peeks, specifically my Raze, Cypher, and Jet. To make it a bit easier for him, I also smoked top mid, knowing this long-range fight is almost unwinnable for the weapons we have, especially when compared to the Tiles duel. After a few moments, Jet finds our path to winning this round by killing Reyna in B main and stealing her gun. Even though on paper this Reyna has a pretty solid chance of killing Jet, the risk versus reward is not in her favor because even if she kills the Jet, there isn't that much of a reward that solidifies the round to be won. Now compare that to the risk of losing this 1v1 and turning over your gun and losing all B main control. This situation is exactly what Jet's looking for. An isolated 1v1 where she has a pretty decent chance at winning the fight despite the resource discrepancy. After this kill, both Jet and Cypher push out B main and mid respectively. These plays give us confidence that the rest of the enemy team must be in A main. So we maintain our stack towards A side, while Jett and Cypher keep them contained if they did choose to rotate. Once we established this formation, the round was pretty much sealed, unless we weren't able to get our trade frags. The combination of our team's willingness to push for fights and Reyna's lack of grouping up with a teammate, it gave us the perfect plan to come back into the round even though most of us only had pistols. Be like our team, and less like the Reyna. Use the higher-lower rule to double your win rate.